Hey all, it's Renee again from Glenrowan, God Squad here. Today we're talking about Luke 24, just after the Easter story, just as Jesus has risen. This is what it's about. This is as exciting as it gets. But we're still people. Here we go. So from verse 5, why are you here looking for the living among the dead? He is not here, he is risen. Remember how he told you while he was still with you in Galilee. The Son of Man must be delivered into the hands of the sinful men, be crucified, and on the third day raised again. Then they remembered his words. When they came back from the tomb, they told all these things to the 11 and all the others. It was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and the others with them who told the apostles. But they did not believe the women, because their words seemed to them like nonsense. Peter, however, got up and ran to the tomb. Bending over, he saw the strips of linen lying by themselves, and he went away, wondering to himself what might have happened. Now the same day, two of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. They were talking with each other about everything that had happened. As they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them, but they were kept from recognizing who he was. He asked them, "What are you talking about?" They stood still, their faces downcast. One of them, named Cleopas, asked him, "Are you only a visitor to Jerusalem and don't know the things that have happened in these last days?" "What things?" he asked. "About Jesus of Nazareth," they replied. "He was a prophet, powerful in word and deed, before God and all the people. The chief priests and our rulers handed him over to be sentenced to death, and they crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel. And what is more, it's the third day since it all took place. In addition, some of our women amazed us. They went to the tomb this morning, but didn't find his body. They came and told us that they'd seen visions of angels who had said he was alive. And some of our companions went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but him they did not see." He said to them, "How foolish you are, and how slow of heart to believe all the prophets have spoken. Did not the Christ have to suffer these things, then enter into glory?" And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what was said in the scriptures concerning himself. As they approached the village to where they were going, Jesus acted as if he was going further, but they urged him strongly, "Stay with us, for it is nearly evening. The day is almost over." So he went in to stay with them. When he was at the table with them, he took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were opened. They recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. They asked each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he talked to us on the road and opened the scriptures to us?" They got up and returned to Jerusalem at once. There they found the 11 and those with them assembled together and saying, "It is true, the Lord has risen and has appeared to Simon." Then the two of them told what had happened on their way and how Jesus had been recognized by them when he broke the bread. While they were still talking about this, Jesus himself stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." They were startled and frightened, thinking they'd seen a ghost. He said to them, "Why are you troubled, and why do doubts rise in your minds?" A little down further it says, "And while they still did not believe it, because of joy and amazement, he asked them, 'Do you have anything to eat?'" I wouldn't want to be in God's shoes when I'm planning this thing, but um, if you think about your relationships, your friendships, your spouse maybe, I would ask whether you can remember a time that you've ever been misunderstood, when you've said something that you thought was clear, but it was taken completely the wrong way. My gut feeling is that this is one of those cases. God said lots of times what he planned to do in the scriptures with his chosen one. Used the word Lamb of God even, terminology that the Jews would have understood. But somehow they didn't recognise what was coming. Somehow they didn't see Christ as the Lamb. They thought that he was coming to fix their problems. They thought that he was coming to make everything right with the Romans. They thought that he would fix everything for them today so that they could go on with life as normal. They didn't have any understanding how big this picture was that God had. They didn't have any understanding of how much better things could be. So they completely missed the stuff that Christ had to do. Even though he told them directly, they had a different picture, and so they missed it. The two things that I wonder about is what is going on in our lives that we are completely missing God's direction on because we have different expectations than God. I wonder about what things I've got going on here that I hope God will bless, and all the while miss the things that God's trying to change in my life. My first question to you would be, where are you in your God journey? Are you following the things that Christ has asked you to follow? Or are you busy trying to follow an agenda like these guys? That is not God's agenda. Or have you walked away from the whole thing? Have you just got sick of God and presumed that he doesn't know what he's doing and going to do something else? The other question that I have is the disbelief that is shown in this story over and over again. The disbelief is a big part of our hearts. I wonder how God addresses that in us today. Because this story, the Easter story, this is what our faith is about. It doesn't get any bigger than this. And yet in the middle of it is human disbelief, because we don't think God is doing what he should. Again, I would ask you, read the Gospels. Find out what Jesus' story is. See whether we're following his story or whether we're upset because he's not following ours. And hopefully, just like these guys, when we see God's picture, we can get with a program, get excited about the things that Jesus would have us be excited about.